Good evening and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan, and I have my co host this week.
And good evening, Dr. J.R. Thicklin here, and I want to say happy Valentine's Day to each and every one of you out there.
Yes, happy Valentine's Day. I just got back from Jamaica, and let me tell you something. It was amazing. I was there with my husband, and when we booked the trip, we had no idea it was Super Bowl weekend. We had no idea it was Valentine's Day we were coming back on. And then, so here we are. So every day is Valentine's Days for me and my husband.
Absolutely, and it's a great thing to be able to say you guys got away, you enjoyed yourself, and guess what? The Super Bowl was super because you guys were involved.
Yes, I love the game. It was so electrifying. You
Yeah.
know, I like the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Yes, absolutely. A game it was. It was a great game, as a matter of fact. And I tell anybody, I said there was really no losers because it was so well played.
Yeah, the Super Bowl party in Jamaica was awesome. I didn't have to cook nothing. All we
Wow.
had to do was shut. They had such a huge spread and variety of food there, and they had three huge screens, and then it was in an auditorium area, so it was just really, it was like being in a theater watching everything live and unfold. So it was really a great experience.
Awesome. The value of being able to get away, I think, is so important. The value of being able to find that life balance to do so. I have to say, if there's any mistakes that I have made in time past, was probably not doing that enough. Always about business, ministry, getting it done. But I tell anyone the prescription for enhancements and sustaining and maturing things is time. It's time, and that
Mhm.
quality time.
Well, Dr. J, as we said at the top of the show, is Valentine's Day. And people put so much emphasis on this one day. They allow one day to define them. Rather they're a woman or a man, they use this one day because they feel if they don't have someone that they're insignificant or they're, like half fulfilled or they haven't reached their purpose, haven't reached their goals. But I mean, but really, are you really open for love? A lot of people, they say they want a relationship, but there's times they only want a relationship when it's convenient, like Valentine's Day and Christmas and New Year's Eve and your birthday.
Yeah.
People love out of convenience, but are you really open to the whole scope of love and what that means, what that is, and how you can be identified by it?
That's a very, very interesting question. And tonight is very interesting because the fact that we're on, that means there's some other people, they're home too. They're watching, they get a chance to watch us. So we want to invite your questions, your comments. Put it there in the comment section and we'll do our best to answer it. But one of the things that is a challenge is to people being open to love. And I want to go back to what you just said: convenience, situational. And people look for those things because we've redefined what love is. We redefined what it really is in its total essence. So for many, situation, convenience is their ideal of love. But however, I do believe that it must go beyond being situational and convenience sake. You put it well. There are a lot of people today that went out and bought a lot of chocolates, a lot of balloons, a lot of different things, going to treat to great dinners. And it's for a moment, it's for a situation, it is for that. And it's not necessarily for the long haul. And we see the same thing, Dr. Val, when we're talking about people wedding versus marriage. We see it. I've had people to come and they come to you 2 months before they planning on getting married. They say, "Will you do marriage counseling with us?" And I'm like saying, "For what?" Because at this point, you already got your wedding dates planned. You've been paid everybody just about. You're ready. You're not open to anything that is going to be said or discovered that is going to make you go back and check, is this the right move? Are we ready for this at all? And so therefore, a lot of time people are in love with the idea
Of
of love. And so because of that idea of love, they treat it as such. You think about it. My goodness, the money and investment, oftentimes into a wedding. I mean, everybody's looking just prestige. I mean, the pores are clean. Everything is looking great. And we'll pour thousands and tens of thousands into that day. And yet it still won't even take the time to go to a counseling session during the marriage because we prepare for a wedding, an event. But marriage is an institution, and it's something we have to live out. And so the same thing when we start talking about, are we ready? Are you open to love? It often depends on what you're coming out of. It depends on the baggage that you carry. Because there are many people that are not open to love. They're carrying baggage of pain, baggage of betrayal, baggage of hurt, baggage of loss, all this baggage. And so as a result, they're no longer open to really love. And they actually think they're protecting. Oh, I got to protect myself. But really, it's like a closed fist. If your fist is closed, can't nothing get in it, and you won't let nothing out of it neither.
Mm.
And so when we talk about being open to love, we have to be able to define what love is, at what level of love we want to be loved. What is our love language? What does that look like? Are there some non-negotiables in our life? And if we don't have any non-negotiable, then that says that we're open to compromise in anything. And so it is a very pertinent question. Are you open to love?
Yeah, a lot of individuals not even open to sharing their space. Now, it's not just limited to women. Men
Yeah.
don't want to share their space because they have their bachelor pad
Hmm.
and they have things just like they want it. They don't want a woman coming in and trying to spruce up nothing because they got a bachelor pad. And the women, they don't want nobody moving in their closet. They got rolls and rolls of clothes and shoes, and there's no room to fit nobody else into that little space they have. So, are you open to the possibilities of sharing?
Hmm.
Sharing not only your heart, but sharing your life. Because that's what love is. Love is sharing, giving, expecting nothing in return, is what love is. Love does. We often hear people say, well, love does, it's not just a word, it does. But what does that does look like? What is doing and acting in love and being in love, what does that actually look like? What does that, you go by feelings? We all have feelings and spurts of love that come into our lives. We have those butterflies in our stomach when we see that person that excites us, and then uh, it dwindles, it shifts because the expectations. Tiffany Brion was on with me last week, and we talked about the expectations of love. We have so many marks that we want individuals to get to that sometimes are unachievable. We have our list. I wrote on there, what about your list? And are you passing up true love because something is missing from that person that's on your list? Yeah, I believe that God can give you the total package. I believe that God can give you everything on your list. But what about the person that you're engaged with? If they have a list and you don't meet all that expectation, but you got 99% of it, you want them to discard you and you miss destiny, because a lot of times that one or two things that are missing off that list is for you to join together and build that and do that.
I am so glad that you said that, because when people live in this fantasy world, and man, we've lived in this fantasy world and we've even spiritualized it. God gonna give me the desires of my heart inside of, and the thing about it's not that God doesn't give you the desire of your heart. It is the fact that what part of that responsibility God actually leaves up to you. Because if the two of you do not have a purpose that increases you, that magnifies you, that brings you out, then guess what? What does it look like? Two perfect people getting together? No, two imperfect people come together and they perfect one another inside of those areas that are there. So listen, you
Exactly.
might not like my size, but maybe work with me, go to the gym with me. Hey, help cook me the right stuff. I'll stay on track if you walk with me. But if that's the only thing you're going to disqualify me for, then you're going to miss out on a treasure. You're gonna miss out because of the fact you got this fantasy in your mind, and that's one of the things that happen. people are in love, they are living out of their imagination.
In their imaginations.
And that's where they are. And you said something earlier I thought that was so profound. When you start talking about people and you look at the capacity in which you're talking about love, it is one of the words. Actually, I just use the word capacity because I know in my own prayers to God at this point in my life, this stage in my life, listen, God, I need a woman that has the capacity to love me, the capacity to reciprocate. I've spent all of my life pouring out, pouring out. Every part of my life is pouring out, whether it's ministry, whether it's teaching and facilitating, whether my whole posture has been pouring out, pouring out. Well, at some point in time, I need someone to pour in, to pour in, to pour in. And so that exchange, I'm an expert at pouring out. I've just have not been so fortunate in having those that pour back in. And so therefore, beyond all the nice things that we do, I mean, I don't know no other way but to be nice. I don't know. I almost feel like I need to read a book, How to Not Be So Nice for Men, because the fact I don't
Yeah,
know
you're quite a pushover, Dr. J. I gotta tell
yeah, I
you.
mean, I don't like when you use that word pushover, but that's exactly
You
what I've
just
been feeling
you
like.
just you
But
do some things and I'm like, why? Are you dating? Are you in a relationship?
and the answer be no. Then why? You're giving away. I know you're giving away the benefits that a person would love to have that's in a relationship, and so I have to learn to stop because I don't know no other way but to give. But in this season of my life, I am learning that I have to tap the brakes. Tap the brakes. Be open. You know, that's an old game they used to call show and tell. Well, sometimes I have to give that other person the room to show and tell, right? To show where they are. Because one thing that is so interesting, and I remember being told this, I think by my daughter, and she said, Dad, you are a hopeless romantic. You know, I'm listening to this girl who I cut her umbilical cord, you're a hopeless romantic. And your problem is, okay, diagnose me then. Your problem is, Dad, that you love the idea of loving and you will give your all. And you're so gung ho on giving and making sure it happen that you don't even recognize that you're not being reciprocated
Right.
until you're way too far down the road.
Hmm.
And I had to stop and think about that. I had to stop and examine that. And even inside of that, it does not make me close my door as far as being open to love, but it does make me more, if you would,
Aware.
mindful, cognizant of my action. Because there are some people, look, they are takers. As long as you're giving, they're going to take.
Hmm.
As long as you're giving, they're going to take. They're not going to stop and say, hey, oh, slow down. Just slow down, everything like that. No, okay, let me do something for you. No, it doesn't always happen that way. And I think that when we talk about being open to love, we have to be very careful that the people that we encounter, are they open to love?
Are
Are
they
they
open?
are they open, period? Are they just open to treats? Are they just open to being treated well, but not to love? Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to be in love alone.
Right. Nobody wants to be alone, period. And
No,
and
period.
and that's the reality of individuals' lives is that they don't want to be alone. And so we have different tracks of relationships and emotions that take place because there's one track where individuals are in a relationship that they shouldn't be in, but
Mhm.
they are too afraid to let go. Then there's another track where a person's in a relationship, they like the person but don't see their self with the future with the person. They
Mhm.
just like them as a friend, but then the person that they're in a relationship with is wanting something more serious, so they prolong the relationship and never get into a position of marriage because that's not what they want. They're waiting for that list to be completed and trying to find while they're occupying until they see or find someone that's on that list they want. Then there's individuals that find that perfect person, but they can't have them because they belong to someone else. So I gave three different tracks, and there are many more. But are we really open to the possibilities of what love looks like. We all know what it feels like, but are we open to putting in the work? And a lot of people don't want to put in the work. Everything is not going to be roses. Everything is not going to be pitch perfect. It won't be perfect until the Lord Himself comes. But are we willing to put in the work to make that two become one?
Well, I want to go back to, I think it's the second one that you talked about. And you talk about the fact of a person who basically they're in a relationship with someone, but it's not really what they truly want, but they prolong it because for whatever reason, they could be afraid to go forward. They don't want the commitment. They're not there, but the other partner is ready. They've gotten to a point where, hey, I really care about you. I really want this to work and I really want to move forward. But the other person is the one who's withholding. I call those people when they hold on to you and they're not ready to move over a long, extended amount of time. You are basically a space filler. You're filling a space in their life, and that space oftentimes is the way you entertain them. That space is the way that you treat them. That space is the things that you do with them. That is that space there. But while you're still waiting for something more, because there ought to be a let me put it this way: just like marriage is not a destination. It's a journey. And the person's got to be willing to walk through and walk on this journey with you. By the same token, you'll see around this time, there are a lot of people who have a destination of saying, well, we're going to get married. That's their destination. Watch this. The wedding becomes their destination. They don't see the marriage as their journey because to them, the finish line was the wedding. We got to the wedding. And so inside of being open to love, that means that I've got to have a self-examination period. Self-examination. Let me examine myself. What is it that I'm still dealing with? Sometimes we have residual toxicity in our lives.
Oh, yes. We all got baggage. If you're a certain age, you have baggage.
Right. Yes, so you got residual toxicity.
And to say, ain't nothing wrong with me, I'm good, and da-da-da-da. No. If you're a certain age, you have baggage.
Man, you got more baggage than Samsonite. I know. I used to say I got more luggage than Samsonite. Okay, so here we go. But
you have a lot of baggage.
Well, thank you very much. Happy Valentine's Day to you as well. Well, the thing
I got a lot of baggage. I got a lot of baggage, but my honey loves me through it all.
Well, I got you. Well, I'm alone. Okay, so I'll leave it like that. But here's the thing that is so interesting. Inside of that, one being willing to examine their own self, examining their own baggage, examining their own toxicity, examining even what I call unrealistic expectation, examining those toxic behaviors that one may have, examine those things, being able to rethink some of these standards that may not even be applicable at this stage in your life. And so to be able to examine those things is number one. Number two, do not penalize a possible next person for what the previous persons have done. That's one of the biggest mistakes we make. We basically superimpose the identity of our exes over the person who's trying to get to know us. And so if there any semblance, any type of sound, oh boy, you wore the same color socks he did. No. Please get over it, because you need to be able to examine what are these things that's causing me to close the door on possibility. What are these things that are causing me to totally maybe forfeiting? I like to say this. You must be able to see not only potential, but purpose inside of a person. Many times we have forfeited what could be the purpose of God. We forfeited the purpose for our preference. Yeah, we forfeited the purpose for our preference. And so our preference gets in the way. We make up these lists and they got to have this. I mean, I understand we live in a modern society. I understand that therefore, I hate to put it this way, and somebody's going to get mad at me, but I'm watching beautiful women that desires relationship, desires that, but they can't get beyond because they've been taught, baby, you got to check the credit score. You got to see if they got 401, IRA, all those other things there. Let me say something to you. 401 cannot hold you, cannot console you, cannot comfort you, cannot help with a conversation, cannot give you wisdom. And what I'm saying inside of that is that too often the things that money can't buy is the very thing that you need. But if the money part overrules all the other things that are necessary, then guess what? You may find yourself alone for a long time because folks live life. Folks get caught up with things. Folks go bankrupt. Folks have situations happen. And it just depends on when are you meeting them. You could be meeting them going into something or coming out of something. But you got to discern, am I open to love? Does this person have the capacity to love me? And do I have the capacity to love, to give love? Those are some questions that we got to ask ourselves if we're really talking about being open to love.
Well, here again, Dr. Dan, finances are very important.
I totally agree.
They don't have to have a stacked bank account, but they need to have potential.
Yeah.
So,
And potential. Yeah.
potential, or have a career where there's some residual that will come, like a retirement or something.
Absolutely.
Younger, yeah, you're still building, but older, you got to
Yeah.
have a little something in place to fall back on, at least be able to pull a social security check if anything happens, because life happens. You could be young, old, in between, and you can say I do. And I've read several stories and saw, because I like watching these crime shows and investigation shows. And so many times I've seen where individuals got married, went on vacation, and tragedy stuck. One had a heart attack, got paralyzed, and then they dealt with it. They're dealing with an illness, but you're married. What do? Can you love beyond that flesh? And see, people look at the exterior and don't focus on the interior, because that person is still the same inside, but they may be broken on outside because their flesh has failed them. And the word of God talks about how the flesh will fail you. And it's not always talking about, oh, I depended on you and you didn't show up. No,
Right.
the flesh will fail you. These houses are just cases we're in right now. And life can happen to us at any time. Can you love? And are you open to love beyond tragedy?
And that's really the question. That is the $1 million question. And the fact that speaks to the fact of having what I call tenacity. And not only having tenacity, but having the ability to be flexible. We talk about we talk about two things, love and trust. Love is as tough as Teflon, it should be. But trust is as fragile as China. When it's broken, it's hard to put it back together.
That's a tweet moment right there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so when we start talking about being open to love, it doesn't mean that we love a person as long as they are operating in a perfect sense. They said the right thing. They did the right thing to the right time. They always was generous spot, because now you're setting yourself up and you're setting that person up. I call it the other shoe syndrome. You waiting on the other shoe to drop. And so when it drops, what happens? I'm done with you. I ain't got nothing else to do with you. No. What are you willing to work through? And then what is it about that other shoe dropping that so offended you that you said it was over with? And is it something that's directly attributed to you, this current individual, or is this residual stuff from the past? Is this unresolved trauma? Is this unresolved forgiveness? Is this all these things there? Because people shut down. You know what happened when people shut down and they're not open to love? They often become bitter. They become bitter. They become pessimistic. They can't stand when they see other folks happy. It's not a relationship. Child, please. Yeah, she all smiling, but she don't know what he doing after dark. She don't know what he's doing at the job. You become pessimistic because you have unresolved issues. You cannot begin to walk in the possibility of love if you have held your own self hostage by your past, by your past experience. And so when I'm talking about being open to love, somewhere along the line, you got to stop being a victim. You got to raise up. You got to understand the fact, listen, I need to live this life. Now, all these billions of people on earth, You gonna tell me God don't have nobody for you? Nobody, absolutely nobody. Nobody's in play.
But they
Really?
weren't. But there were. I've heard it said a couple of times during messages individuals preached about how God sent someone to provide water and provide
Yeah,
whatever, and they kept saying, "Wait, I'm waiting for this one to come, and I'm waiting
yeah,
for that one to come." But every person that came had what they needed to
yeah.
survive, and they wound up dying because they didn't want the blessing from that person. They were waiting on in that one shining moment, and that's one of the things that I believe happens to a lot of us. We miss our moment.
We miss our moments for very, what I like to call, shallow reasons. We miss our moment because of the fact of our lack of maturity. We miss our moments because we don't like the packaging of the gift.
Hmm.
We miss
They
our
could
moment.
be, oh, that's very important. They
Mhm.
could have everything going, but if they don't look a certain way, it's like it's over.
Yeah, you shut down a moment, and then you'll spend a lifetime trying to find those same characteristics in someone that look like you want to look, but they just don't have it. They're rude, they're obnoxious, they're not considerate, they're not thankful, they're selfish, all those things there, but they look like they just stepped out of a magazine. Oh yeah, you like their physique, you like all that, but they are jacked up in their spirit, they're jacked up in their character, they're jacked up in their countenance, they're selfish. They think about nobody but themselves, me, myself, and I. And then you rather get caught up in something like that because the fact you were more concerned with what the package looked like than what was actually in the package.
Hmm. Yeah, I used to say, why do so many good guys wind up with bad girls? It's because they attracted to the package. The outside look good, but
Mhm.
then that their twin is killing them. Their twin is killing them, is ripping them to shreds because outside looks perfect. Everything is in order, even down to the sophistication, the money, all that is perfect. But inside, they're filthy rags.
Absolutely. For those of you that are watching, feel free to put your comments or your question. If there's something you agree with, put it right there in the comment section. Hey, the question is, are you open to love? And if you're not, why aren't you open to love? Are we holding on to old things, right? Uh, I believe this old building keep on leaning. You got to move to a better home. So sometimes you got to move on to something better. There are people that struggle and they're not open to love because of the fact they are waiting in silent breath that what was will be again. I've talked to women that are still in love with their exes.
Hmm.
Their exes have gone on to marry other people and things, but they're still in love with them.
Yeah, I
And
know
they're
something like that.
and they monitor that ex almost like they're monitoring the stock market. They're checking in every day as often as they can to see whether or not it has risen or fall, whether or
Yeah,
not they're
there's a
having
crack in there that they may be able to jump back in there.
yeah, whether
I
there's
know
some problems.
it's a tragedy, those that go through that emotionally. I feel so bad for them and stuff because when individuals have moved on and you're still stuck in that space, and then you feel as though the whole world is stuck to, that leads you into a period of depression, and that's not good. That's not good. There's so much more for individuals to live for and to connect with other people, because when I was married the first time, I was married for 19 years, and I couldn't see myself. He was horrible, but I
Mhm.
couldn't see myself with anyone else because I thought that's the way it was supposed to be. Because I had no training, or there's no manual about
Exactly.
marriage and relationships, and then you in the church and you thinking it's supposed to go this way, virtuous woman, spare me with that, who can find a virtuous woman thing, who can find a virtuous man. So I mean, like, really. And so I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how
Yes.
significant I was. I didn't know how valuable I was. And I definitely didn't know how attractive I was.
Mhm.
So, I was just existing and not living. And unfortunately, I'm not alone. There's so many that
Yes.
are in that very same situation. And when that person went on, you know, I was glad he moved on and went on. But then at the end of the day, I was like, wow, I'm here with 4 kids. Wow. He always told me no one would even look your way with 4 kids.
Well, because he was trying to get you to see your life as having a lot of baggage. He's trying
Mm-hmm.
to get you to see that your life was complicated. Your life, who's going to want that? Who's going to buy for attention from you when you got 4 kids that are pulling for that? So it was painting the picture to get you to feel as if there was no hope, that it was a dead end.
Yes. So there are women that are thinking and feeling just like I felt, and I want you to know that you must rise. There is a greater version of yourself, and there is a greater purpose for you to achieve. So don't allow someone's opinion to become that reality that you're living right now. Rise up from your bed and begin to live. I waited. I built my career. I traveled the world. And then I met Mr. Right after all these years. And let me tell you, he was worth the wait.
Work
I
away.
mean, I'm living my best life right now. I'm living better than I did in the past because, the word of God tells us that our latter should be greater than our former. And I'm
Mhm.
living that. I'm a witness to what is possible. So don't just settle and say, this is it. Don't settle. You're
You know,
far
people,
too beautiful, far too handsome to allow broken hearts to keep you stagnant, to keep you broken and feeling like you're not worth it. But yes, you are worth it. Every day that you get up, you have the power to change and redeem your life to be everything you want it to be. Those dreams, those goals you want to achieve, do it. You want to travel, do it. You don't have to have a spouse to travel. Get up and go and meet them. And guess what? That person may be on your travels if you just do it. They're waiting on you. They're waiting on you.
the intersection of destiny can only happen when there's movement. And for
Mm,
people who have taken themselves out of the game, if you would, the game of life,
wow, that's
and and
powerful.
and they're sitting on the sidelines. They're sitting on the sidelines pouting. They sit on the
They tapped out.
sidelines bleeding. Yeah, they've tapped out. They're sitting on the sidelines observing other people living in a world of woulda, shoulda, coulda, wish I had. Uh, those individuals there will never intersect with purpose and destiny because you cannot discover what's on the other side if you never leave the shore. If you never leave the shore, you'll never discover what's on the other side. And I believe that when it comes to this thing about are you open to love, sometimes we have to be willing to get ourselves out of the way. There are some people that are so spiritual that
Mm.
literally, when they say they married to
You're waiting
Jesus,
for the Lord to bring them down.
when they say they're married to Jesus, that's about all they're gonna be married to. Because they have so over spiritualized it that they cannot even hear God when God is actually sending someone. And there are people, watch this, there are people that will miss out on opportunities because they believe something that somebody else might be saying about a possible prospect that you have. One thing I learned in this life is that you can't always take other folks' word about someone else because you might not be encountering this person in the same season that person
Exactly.
encountered them at.
Yeah.
You might have encountered him at his low days. You may have encountered at his scandalous days. You may have encountered her when she was toe up from the floor up. You may have encountered her when she was irresponsible, immature, and all those things. But what happens when I encounter her? Immaturity have kicked in. Life has served some lessons. We've learned some things, and vice versa. What happens when, listen, he's no longer having a baggage of 5 little kids that he tried to raise. And now he's up and mobile. He's doing great things. And the only thing you have is old tape recorder, somebody telling you about what he used to be, all those kids. You sit there and miss the mark listening to somebody else. They're going on with their lives,
Me and my
enjoying.
4 kids
Exactly,
that
exactly.
got degrees and
Yeah,
now got
exactly.
families.
Yeah, exactly. So it is kind of this. I saw a post the other day, and I thought it was so powerful. And it was a post by uh, uh, oh God, I almost forget his name, Bishop Brian Keith Williams, and he posts a
Mm,
picture of him and T.D. Jakes. But Brian Keith Williams, who I met some years ago, he
yeah.
posted and he tells a story of all those years ago that he met an unknown young man in his early 20s. He met him at this place of preaching, and he was invited to come preach for him. He said when he got there, he picked him up from the bus station. Not only picked him up from the bus station, but he was staying in his mama house. And so he gave up his bed for Brian to have a place to stay. He came to preach a 3 or 4 night revival at his place. He said he may have had 20, maybe 30 members in a storefront church. Well, as time would go on and they build a relationship, life would change. And it's funny how he says that when we met each other back then, who would have known that God would have done the things he is now? The last time
Mhm.
he spoke for him, he was it was 20,000 people in the place. So I say to people that you have to understand that divine encounters are just that. They're divine encounters. You are trying to meet the whole picture already spelled out. No, it
Already.
wouldn't be a divine encounter. It wouldn't be a divine encounter. What makes it a divine encounter? It's like a puzzle. What you are missing, I have. And so it's able to fit in snug right where it is. They used to sing a song, you got what I need. And for some time, people will miss it because they try to relegate it only to that only being a friend,
Yes.
when God is trying to set them up with someone who understands what you've gone through because they walked through, who
Right.
understands how to lift because they've had to lift, who understand what it is to be downtrodden because they've been there, who understand what it is to strengthen one another. And if you're not willing to embrace that moment, you just may miss out on your destiny. I love the scripture that says, you know what? It says, we may not know we may not know what we should be, but we do know that when he shall appear, we will be just like him. Sometimes we might not know what the end of the story is going to be, but we just got to be in position to recognize that whatever that is at work here, let it work, let it work, let it
Yes.
work. Don't shut it down based upon your inhibitions. Don't shut it down based upon your negative experience. Don't shut it down because of hurt. Stop listening to stories of people who have nothing but bad stories to tell. Put yourself back in the game of life. Trust God and believe God. When you ask God to show me the way, in all my ways, I acknowledge you and you direct my path. Well, guess what? Sometimes you need to get your path directed. You can't get your path directed. You on the couch every day and you never ever leave the house and thing. What are you setting yourself up for? Nothing. So you have to be open to the idea. And if you're open to love, the second part of that, Dr. Val, is can you stand to be loved?
Ooh,
Can
speak.
you stand to be loved?
Can
There,
you stand it?
yeah, there are some people that can't stand to be loved because they keep waiting on that other shoe to drop. This can't be real. This can't be real. They start finding a way to if you would, to
Count themselves
devastate,
out.
to disseminate, and we call it self-sabotage. There are
Mm,
people that will self-sabotage every relationship because they've never dealt with their toxicity. They've never dealt with the pain. They've never dealt with the betrayal. They've never dealt with that. And so now everybody, no matter how good they are, it's a suspect in your book. There's a suspect. Well, what happened to old things that pass away? Behold, all things come new. Your eyes didn't become new. You can't see beyond the old lenses. It's time to get a different perspective and be open to what God may have for you. And I believe that that is absolutely necessary. Absolutely
absolutely.
necessary.
Dr. J, when I met my husband, he didn't have everything that I thought I wanted,
Mhm.
and he didn't have everything that I thought I need. But there was something about him. It was a God encounter. It was
Mhm.
something about him. And all of my years of living, there was something different about him. And I too for a little bit was like waiting for that shoe to drop. This is
Mhm.
too good to be true.
Right.
And but every day he showed me. He showed me every day that I was worth it. He would drive 2.5 hours each way to see me
Wow.
after working hard all day.
Wow.
2.5 years. Then after we got married, it was another. So it was a total like 4 years driving back and forth to work 2.5 hours every
Wow.
day.
Wow. And that's a total of 10 hours a day.
Mhm.
I mean,
Committed
5 hours a day, I
five
should say.
hours a day, 5 hours a day after working sometime eight,
Eight,
11
10.
hour shifts,
Yeah.
depending on what was going on at the job.
Yeah.
So, you know, he showed me he didn't have all this, my list and all this,
Mhm.
but such as he had, he was willing to give it.
Well, he showed you the most
And
important
that
part.
was his time, and that was his
No, yeah,
heart.
he showed you the most important part. Number one, he showed you endurance. Number two, he showed you that he believed enough to press his way. He showed you that he valued you because the fact, he valued you so much that time did not become the
Time
issue for
didn't
him.
matter.
It didn't matter. And the fact of, listen, you work and you get old, you want to go to sleep. But to have to know that I'm driving 2.5 hours one way, listen, there's got to be something special on that other end and something
Mhm.
that you believe in. And I believe that sometimes we miss out on the intrinsic qualities of individuals because we're looking for the wrong thing. We are.
Exactly.
And then there are those who part of the reason why they can't not find themselves where they need to because they're looking for what I call an optic relationship.
Mm.
Optics, how it appears to the eyes of men, how it appears to the eyes of men. We put on these labels, power couple. Boy, look at them. Let me say something to you. You about as much of a power couple as you have power. And
Yeah.
that's the power to love, the power to forgive. That is the power to endure, the power to understand, the power to counsel, the power to if you would, to give grace. Because love doesn't come without grace. Love doesn't come without grace. It is unmerited favor. It cannot be a tit for tat. It cannot be a tit for tat. That means that I'm going to have to give you grace in areas that you might not be whole. I'm going to have to give you grace in areas that you might not be perfected in. And I would hope that you would give me some grace while you're giving me some space. And so grace and space is very important inside of this thing called love. And if we continue to act and treat love and relationship like it's this concrete figure, we are so wrong. Love ought to evolve. Love ought to grow stronger. Love ought to be, you think about cement. Cement starts off as this liquid, but then over a period of time, it becomes solid. But that's not even what we want. Because there's sometimes we need to have the flexibility inside of our love. The flexibility that says, listen, that was a curve in the road. Do we have the ability, to rock with me and roll with me? Do you have the ability to do so? Some people, when you start having winding roads, they when things go left, let's just say they'll go with it. Some people, when things go left, they go, they go with it. But there are other people, they're not. There are other people, they have the flexibility and they recognize the essence of what they have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they work with the essence of what they have because it's like any good thing. I like to think of this way. This way I am very much. I've learned to communicate very well. I like to ask questions from time to time, like, "What was the highlight of your day?" Judging this week, how do you think we did this week? Is there anything? Was there anything that grew or that you felt that you were enlightened with on this week that you wasn't before? Do you feel like you know me any better than before? Then I'm asking the same question to myself. Do I know you? Because it's so easy when you're talking about being open to love. Make sure that you're not the only person that's giving your whole resume.
Exactly.
I,
Exactly.
what is it that I really know about you? Why is
What
it
do
that
I
you
know
don't?
about you? What do I know about your family? And if you have
Yeah.
children, what do I know about them? And, how can we mesh together to make this one? Because there's different dynamics. There's a lot of women that have children, there's a lot of men that have children, not been married, never been married. So,
Mhm.
what does that look like? Pulling that together. Are you open to love? Because open to love means having some sacrifices. Are you willing to sacrifice who
That
you
is,
think you are in
mhm.
order to have who or be who you need to become?
You put it in such great terms there. Sacrifice is part of it. It is. It is. Sacrifice, compromise is part of it. If you're sitting there grading each other based upon the fact of you did everything right, then you're being unjust to
Hmm.
one another. What happens when I'm just not having a good day? What happened this one time I didn't take out the garbage, maybe because I was sick? What happened this one day when you just didn't feel like cooking?
Hmm. Hmm.
What happens? And you've got to be able to move beyond that and understand the essence of what I'm dealing with. Sometimes I like to say, well, guess what? I'm already convinced about who you are. So if I see anything else, then it's out of character. That lets me know something is wrong because that's not who you are. That's not who you've demonstrated. And sometimes we don't get to that place. We don't allow each other to get to that place because we're standing there like a teacher with the red pen, the red mark. No. Are you open to love? Are
Hmm.
you open to receive love? Are you reject?
And are you open to love even though you're broken? Are you willing to allow someone to help you put the pieces back together again?
You know, Dr. Val, I've been doing a series that's talking about grace to navigate through broken pieces. and
Mm.
and I and I kind of go back to the story of David and Bathsheba, and I go back to the place of brokenness. So oftentimes when we hear the word broken and brokenness, we always look at it in a negative connotation, because in fact we've been convinced that the word broken only simply means that it's not operable. If it's broken, it doesn't operate. I liken it to the fact when you buy kids toys for Christmas and a day and a half later they've broken it, and so we say, "Oh man, they didn't broke it." And so many times we want to discard it. And what I'm saying is that there are certain brokenness that you and I may have that is not meant for you to be discarded, but it's meant to be a signal to us that there are some things that we need to deal with, that we need to open up to, that we need to face. There's some realities that we need to face. And sometime along that, God will send someone who can see you for who you are. Watch this, and without judgment.
Without
Without judgment.
judgment.
And without judgment, and understand that I didn't think I was going to encounter this perfect person. There's nothing like being talking to someone, and trying to get to know them in a relationship, and you can just sense that they're waiting on that other shoe to drop. It's like, when it's going to drop, it is too good to be true. Because let me tell you something: the same energy that you're using in withholding, in not embracing, that synergy could be used to encourage and to bring things together, and stop looking, because you could be the cement. You could be the glue that helps put some pieces back together. That person could be the glue in your life that you meant to have, but you'll never know it because you are not open to love. You're not open to love. You're not open to love. If love come too close to you, you self-sabotage. If love come too close to you, you run. You close the door. You ghost people. You block their numbers because you're not open to love.
Right.
You're not. And some
This
people
is a
live in.
reality. This is a reality with thousands and thousands of people. They self-sabotage themselves because they are afraid of someone knowing who they really are, and the fear that they may not like it if they be transparent. Because you could only be a chameleon, but for so long.
So long. And I like to say this. I'm going to say this. I tell the sister, I know that you don't always wear makeup. I know there'll be a time that I will see you just as you are. The reality is this.
Wait a minute, Dr. J. Alex and I were married, I think almost a year. He said, "Am I ever going to see you here?" Because every time I would do my hair when he was at work. I said, "But it's all gray." He was like, "Wear the gray." And then when I let him see it, he was like, "I like it. Why don't you wear gray? I mean, you're of a certain age. I like the mixed color." I said, "No." He said, "Well, dye it." I said, "I can't dye it. I'm allergic to the dye now. Before, back in the day, I used to be able to dye my hair, but I can't do it now. It
Wow.
breaks me out." But he was like, "Am I ever going to see you?" Like I say, you could only be some way for so long. So eventually he had to see the naturalness of it. And he was like, "Hey, I like it."
Exactly. I think was it I can't think of uh, I don't always know the names of these artists there, but India Ari, who said, "I'm not my hair,"
Yeah.
yeah. And so sometimes we have to understand, that those externalisms is not what necessarily
Right. He
defines
was like, "I thought maybe you were bald or didn't have no hair or something. Why don't you just wear it out?" I was like, "No."
it. But we must be willing, because once
Willing.
again, we must be willing. And I think a lot of times for females, a lot of times for them even, they are so busy and they've been so socialized to think, man, I got to protect the way I look. I got to look a certain way, that literally they withhold on being all and giving all that they can be, because of the fact they don't know how long they can maintain that mask, if you would.
Right.
When you really encounter someone who wants to know you for you,
Right.
who wants to get to know
All
you,
of you, not just a
all
part
of
of you, a
you, just
section
a
of you,
part of
what
you.
they look like you, but all of you. They've already embraced and embodied the spirit of who you are.
Yeah, you got to understand. In this day and time, I often share with people, that you've got to be open enough to discern it as well. Discern, you know, I think John Legend says it best.
Mhm.
He says, "All of me wants all of you, all your curves and your edges, all your perfect imperfections. I give you all of me." And I think that's what people have to understand. There are people that comes with imperfections. We all come with imperfections. The reality is, do we have the capacity to extend the grace to an individual throughout those imperfections? Because watch this, we see we see something greater in them beyond that. Paul says that in your weakness, in my weakness is your strength made perfect. He was speaking about grace. Before that, he says your grace is sufficient. And so sometimes in dealing with people, we've got to understand where grace come in at,
Yes.
because we want grace. We want grace when we're not having our best days. We want grace when things aren't quite going right. We want grace when somehow or another the bank account did not get it didn't balance right. Somehow or another, we want grace when we try to figure out where this credit card charge came from. We want grace. We want you to understand. Well, that same type of grace is needed when I'm really talking about being open to love. It's a sad thing to think that a person could be alone 10, 15 more years because they simply missed the door that was there before, but they couldn't see it because they had so many things in front of them. They had so many barriers up, only to realize that at last my love has come and gone. And that's what they realizing, that the love that was there for them have come and it's gone, because you basically wasn't open to love. And I think that's what we have to think about. Am I open to love? And I think I'll end it on this note here. You know, I'm so glad God was open to love us. That he was open to love us, that when we were yet jacked up, tore up from the floor up, his love said, "I'm going to give my only." Only if we had that type of love to see beyond our own immediate idiosyncrasies.
Yes.
If only we had that type of love, because once again, I'm going to close by saying too often we forfeit the purpose for the preference. And yet it's still we're told that many are the plans of a man's heart, but it's the purpose of God that prevails. And so at the end of the day, if I'm going to trust that God knows my purpose and God knows what I need, the capacity of what I need, I'm going to trust that over my preference. I don't want to give God my preference list. And God said, that's not lining up with my purpose list.
Mm-hmm.
Because you keep asking me and I give you your preference. You'll be asking me again for something else. You're going to want to trade in. So because the fact you didn't get the purpose thing. So I hope that everyone got something out of this, because are we open to love? Ask yourself that question.
Indeed. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone that is listening. And if this show has been a blessing to you and you found some information valuable, please share it with a friend and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Hot Topics from the Soul. And remember, love, love, love. It affects our past, our present, our future. Love is an emotion, it's a gift that's given to us from God, and it should never, ever hurt. Good night, and God bless.
God bless.